Testing sound. Oh, it's good that that works. Oh, right. I'm still working on this module mapper thing, and I did a whole big bunch since last time. I even figured out what the problem was last time. It was very simple. So let's go over what that was first. So what was the problem last time? Well, the problem last time involved this start compilation, and I was returning something from it. Oh, yes, here we go. Start compilation, and I was returning a compilation status. This is actually new. I was returning something simple from it. I was returning something like this from it. But it happens to be an async context manager. In async context managers, you're supposed to return generators from, or in the case of an async context manager, an async generator. So that was the problem, is I had specified the return type for start compilation improperly. Anyway, since then, I've added a whole lot of stuff. It is quite a pile of stuff. And I've been making an MQ because I like Mercurial, and MQ is nice. So I'll talk about it. I moved a whole big bunch of the types into their own separate file so that I could share them between two different pieces of the program. Basically, I lifted out a dependency so that to eliminate a circular dependency straight out of Large-Scale Software Design by John Lakos, an excellent book. I'm not so sure about his follow-up books, but his first book was fantastic. And one of the techniques for dealing with dependency cycles is you take the thing that the two things are depending upon each other over, and you just lift it out and make a third thing about it and have them each depend on the third thing, which is exactly what I did here. I needed to have the dependency scanning is complicated enough that I wanted it to be its own Python file. And so I put it here in this dependency scan, but the dependency scanning depends upon a bunch of the types that are in the database because it has to access the database. So I needed to put it there. And then but also the dependency database itself depends upon these types. And so I needed to lift the types out and put them in their own file, along with a couple of important methods associated with these types. So there we go. That's what this file is about. Then, of course, this dependency scan, but the dependency can, like start compilation here, does all this stuff to start the compilation. It has this odd mechanism that's basically designed to lock the database entry for a compilation. Currently locks it using a PID, which is a little bit, doesn't work so well, except for the fact that so this has a major problem in that you have two compilations and you interrupt one, and it gets into a whole mess. And you might end up having to zap the dependency database and start over right now. But at least the dependency database will... Well, there's one thing you can do, is actually, I need to write a cleaner program that goes through the dependency database, looks for all the compilations in progress, fails them all, and then that would be the reset. So then things can continue, because otherwise it is possible for things to block for an arbitrarily long length of time waiting for a compilation to finish. But the dependency, this whole thing is set up to sort of lock the database entry when you start compiling it, so that nobody else tries to compile the same thing at the same time as you are. Now, fail compilation and no compilation needed are easy. Fail compilation is all about the oh, this is going to be tricky. So fail compilation is if the compilation fails, you just set it to failed, and that's that, and the compilation is over. So the context manager, one of the things that it does here when you start a compilation is if you don't somehow set the status of the compilation before the context manager ends, well, it goes through and it goes, okay, the compilation failed. Failed the compilation. So there's that. But then the next thing that happens is if no compilation is needed, it happens if everything is up to date. And so then that just goes through and says, oh, that all succeeded. It's all good. I don't need to do anything. It's great. And so all it really does is set the compilation to success and not really modify anything else. It also turns, it sets the compilation to success, and it basically sets the PID to none, all just to make sure that it succeeds. The database actually has two different interfaces here. And there's the sync interface and the non-sync interface. And nobody should ever be calling the sync interface directly. So that's something I have to look at doing. So compilation success is more complicated because it has to call compilation success sync. That's what it does. But compilation success sync is a fairly complicated function. And so it has to, it opens up a database transaction and then does a whole big bunch of dependency scanning, because compilation success implies that a compilation happened. So a bunch of database entries need to be updated with their new values for times. So, yes. That's kind of what this is about. Scan update, dependency scan update dependencies is basically about updating the times for everything in the database. And this also modifies the value, which is basically the database entry for the thing you just compiled, but it doesn't save the value. So that's this guy's job, is to save the value. This is the wrong thing to do. Well, no. So compilation success is supposed to return a false or true value. Basically, it returns true if it turns out that you need to recompile everything. that something was updated in the middle of you compiling it, and your compile basically turned out to be invalid. The appropriate thing to do is to actually then call compilation fail compilation, because when it says compilation success, it doesn't actually modify the database at all if it tells you true. It only modifies the database if it tells you, yep, you're all good. I should actually somehow change the sense of this. I should change it to be the other way around. So, yeah. All right. And this these are the only two return statements, so that's good. All right. So that's what's going on here. And I changed the sense of this because it's going to be very confusing to people if it returns true if you need to redo the compilation. It's better to return false, saying that somehow this function didn't succeed. It's the more intuitive approach here. So now we have this scan thing. So the scan has this update dependencies, and this update dependencies has this update submodule, which goes through and checks a whole bunch of things. Mostly it checks to make sure that no submodules ended up with modification times for their output that are later than the modification time for the output for the module you just compiled. Because if that happened, somebody else compiled it after you compiled it, which means it's out of date now. Your thing is out of date. relying on the modification time to test this because that's all I got. And then the other thing it does is it ignores all header files that would have been looked at by one of the submodules, one of the modules that you depend on might have included this header file. So it only looks at header files that just this module and no other modules include. And checks to find out if any of those have M times, modification times that are later than your thing. One of the things that doesn't happen here is there's no garbage collection of header files because, maybe a module depended on a header file and then it stopped depending on a header file. And then that header file data is sitting around in the database forever because it's essentially orphaned. Again, that's a garbage collection cleanup process. I don't expect it will be a big deal, but that's a thing that happens. This function is entirely too complicated. I tried to have check header in a couple of cases. One, if you're actually doing an update, and then another time if you're not doing an update, like if you're scanning to find out if you need to recompile. If you're scanning to find out if you need to recompile, you don't actually want to update the database. You just want to say that it's out of date. The logic for this is pretty complicated. Partly because of these two cases that are overlapping but not exactly the same. So a lot of cases I have to have like a slightly different thing that happens. I don't know if I want to go through the logic unless somebody really cares, but that's what's going on here. Update dependencies. This is just straight recursion through all the modules. And then I take all the header files that any of those modules depend on. One, if any of those modules in the process of being compiled, well, clearly we're out of date. So that's our immediately like, yep, we're out of date. I don't care. We need to be recompiled. Then I look at M times. And if the M time is greater, then of course also we need to recompile. Otherwise, I just assume that those modules did all the header file checking that they needed to do. And I take the header files that they depend on and take them out of the set of includes that needed to be updated. So the only includes that ever need to be updated are the ones that just this module that the check is being done for have included. Yeah, this goes through our list of modules and then does the recursive walk for each of them. You know what I should do here is I should just collect the list of modules here, right? Should just collect the list of modules. And because doing this recursion here, no. What this will end up doing is any module like that's part of a diamond where I have like, oh, this depends on this, and this depends on this, and they both depend on that, right? Any module that's part of a diamond will end up being checked. This one, is it up to date? Then this one, is it up to date? Like it'll be checked all over the place. So what I really need to do is I need to create a list. And then once I have the list, I go through the entire list and do the check for each thing in the list. No, no, the right way to do this is to do it this way. Here we go. There. There we go. There, that short circuits that and prevents that problem from happening where I check the same module multiple times in the same scan. All right, that helps a bit. Okay, so now we got a bunch of diffs here. One of the things that's also bothering me right now is I'm going way out on a limb. I haven't tested any of this new functionality. And so I'm kind of building a whole big bunch of new functionality that I haven't tested. I don't like that I've done this, but there it is. Anyway, I am going to start checking a bunch of stuff in. But I'm going to use, so mercurial commues are a really nice thing. They're kind of like when people use the rebase path in Git, MQ kind of is a little bit like that. It allows you to maintain a stack of patches that you can push and pull, which is really great when you kind of want to curate a list of changes. But it's also the other thing that I've been using it for is sometimes I use an AI to analyze the code to tell me if there are any bugs or what it thinks of the design, things like that. And so when I do that, I'm a little worried that the AI is going to try and change the code because it's one of the agentic AIs. Sometimes I actually do ask the AI to write code. Usually it's when I want an idea about how to do something, then see what the AI comes up with. Sometimes it's to write tests. When it's to write tests, I've often left the AI code mostly alone. Every time so far I've asked the AI to come up with a way to do something, it's done it in that way, but it's been clunky and bad, and I've had to redo it because it's not the way I would choose to do it. Even if I would choose to use similar techniques, I would organize the code differently so that the code was more elegant and nice. Because it's very rarely that way when the AI does it. So that's what I've done with the AI. The last time was in the topological sort for the that was being done for the dependency dump, the tsort helper and stuff like that. I wrote my own. I was wondering if there was a better approach than writing my own. And so I asked the AI to do it. And the AI gave an approach that was obviously going to work, but it was clunky and obnoxious in the way that it was set up. And so I changed it significantly, made it a lot more efficient, use a lot less memory, and just a little more elegant, a lot fewer lines of code. And that's what I came up with here. But it's the basic approach, the basic algorithm is the same one that the AI came up with. Just with my own little twist on it that makes it nicer, more elegant, and easier to read, in my opinion. Less code. So that's a case where I had the AI write code and then I rewrote it. Cases where I had the AI write code and I probably do need to rewrite it at some point in time have been like Up here, not in this file. Which file here? Main.py? No. Parsing.py. Yeah, I had it write these two parsers. And I need to rewrite the parsers. They're bad. I don't like how they're done. I did rewrite join command. That one is a little more like I would choose to write this, but these are bad. They're like loops with explicit indexes, which you should avoid doing in Python. They do index manipulation inside the loop, which makes the loop harder to read. There's a whole lot of repetitive code here. It's just, this is not written well, and I need to redo it. And the same here. This is also not written well, and I need to redo it. But the basic approach is what I'm going to do. It's a state machine that steps through all of the things. And yeah, I don't like the code that the AI wrote. So this is a case where I had some AI write some code and I need to rewrite it. It's ugly, and I care. But when writing tests, I didn't have it write any of these tests, any of the tests that are in, any of these tests. I haven't had it write any of these tests. And I haven't had it write any of these tests. I've written them all myself. But in the case of a different project that I wrote in C++, I had it write a whole bunch of tests without modifying them significantly, because I don't really care how ugly test code is. It can be really ugly just as long as it's pretty straightforward and gets the job done. That's all I really care about. So, yeah. Think. Anyway, back to what I was up to. So don't care about this test thing, dependency DB. And I'm going to piecemeal so document and invert. And then there, like that. Slightly too long. I need to kill off 9 characters. One more character. There. That's better. Okay. What? No. No. So Q new didn't operate the way I expected it to. Oh, I see. I need to rename this first. There. Almost as long a name, but yeah. So what did I do here? You notice no more is there a change to the dependency scan. I didn't want that change to be caught up in this one. I wanted them to be separate. So I basically copied out one change. Yes, I'm going to be putting it into a new thing here. There. So here's MQ. So I have this whole patch queue, and I can do HG pop. So we do HG status. I have all these things that are not tracked at all, which is fine. I don't want them to be tracked. They're not really part of the project. They're all of these things are here sort of as either documentation or control of the build system. And so I don't really want them checked into the project. The thing that I do want, though, is all these. So if we do HG log, we can see, like, there's all these tags, no double check, blah, 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 all, this, the compilation results 1 and 2, and then Q parent. So one of the things I can do is I can do a Q pop, right? And I can get back to when if I look at the series, different ones are highlighted, like, oh, no double check is no longer highlighted. And if I do HG log, no double check is part of the stack. So I can basically push and pop changes onto the stack. If I wanted to reverse the no double check change and the compilation results change, I could do that. Because in fact, those two changes, not the compilation results, but the fix depdb.compilation success. Those two changes are orthogonal to each other. They have no relation to each other. There's no ordering relationship between them. I could use this to easily switch the ordering of those two changes. And, that's the thing that you can do with MQ. The thing is you can't really push things that are being managed by MQ. You can't push them to a remote repository, or maybe even if you can, you shouldn't push them to a remote repository because the hashes are going to change. You're like pushing and popping changes and blah, 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 blah. And so it's not, the hashes won't stay stable. Those changes are changes that are basically in flux. This allows you to curate a set of changes to your thing, so you can make a set of atomic change sets. So you can kind of do what I just did before, kind of move changes between change sets and stuff, so that each change set is like its own thing. And this is something MQ lets you do. As I said, the other thing that I was letting it do is like save the state of things so that I could run the AI, and it would make it easier, one, to ask the AI about changes that I had made, because the changes would be in the version control system, and the AI could go into the version control system and see this change you did this change you did that, blah, 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 blah. So I could ask it about individual changes that I made, Also, if the AI slipped up and didn't follow instructions and made a change when I didn't want it to, well, I still have the original because I've checked it in effectively, even if that check-in is to some kind of immutable thing like the mercurial queues. So that's the reason why I was using mercurial queues here. They're very nice in this particular case. So let's go on to the next thing that I need to do. So I need to write things that, so update dependencies is great, but I also need to check out of date. All right. Yep, if the module isn't in the database, um, and it seen me use this pattern previously, and so it repeated this pattern. Value is either bytes or module value. When I do transaction get key bytes, value is now bytes. But then I do this. Avoid checking a module twice. Oh, hi there. uh, where are you then? You must be in Europe someplace. Oh, well, you're quite welcome. Oh, neat. Austria. I've actually never talked to anybody from Austria before. I've talked to a bunch of people from Germany. I've talked to people from, I have somebody I know from Bosnia. Uh, I know somebody from mostly Germany and Bosnia. I don't know that I've really had many interactions with Italy. I think I've talked to a couple of Italians once in the long past, and some people from Great Britain. Oh, okay. Why did you choose to move to Austria? Let's see. So yes. And actually, this should be. I want to check the input before I check the output. Ah, have you wanted to get out of hospitality? What kind of job do you have within the hospitality industry? Let's see here. The reason why I want to check the source before the destinations, the source is the one that's most likely to have changed because somebody will have edited a file or something. Uh, and even if the destination has changed, I want to check the source first. Um, And I can't use value here. I did see it, and I remember you telling me it, and I've managed to forget what it was. So give me a brief reminder again. If you like, just say a small thing about it. I'll probably remember what the project was, because you did say something about it. Rename. This is one of the reasons I really like this editor. In this particular case, there. Actually, we're going to do it this way. Yeah, we still need. Like that. I actually completely disagree with that. So you missed the earlier in the stream when I went over things I had AI generate, and it did a bad job of it. One and in all cases where AI has been part of the main code, I've wanted to rewrite the code that it wrote. The code that it wrote, and I'll give you an example of code that I haven't rewritten yet that is on the chopping block. This is terribly non-Pythonic. It's fragile. It's a bad way to do this problem. Now, the overall approach is not too bad. Like, yes, you should have a state machine, and it should look at each thing and so on and so forth. This is approximately what's going on here. But incrementing the index manually here is stupid for a whole big bunch of different reasons. You shouldn't be doing that. You possibly shouldn't be having an index at all. All these continue statements, I mean, maybe, but then combined with the hand incrementing of the index, very definitely not. Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff here that's just wrong. You shouldn't do it that way in Python, but that is how the AI did it, and it needs to be fixed. Same with this function. Same problems. This is just a stupid way of doing this in Python. You shouldn't be doing it this way. And so I don't like that the AI did it. I had the AI generate these because there's one, I didn't know all the options I should be paying attention to. The AI is able to combine the documentation that it can see for GCC with the algorithm to special case all the different kinds of GCC options that I should care about for compilation mode and such. Same here. I had it read the protocol spec for the protocol that I'm speaking, and it was able to make the low-level code for parsing out words within that protocol, which is fine. It's good. It works, but it's badly written. I also tried to have it write the sort here, and the sort for dump here, I had to have a topological sort for my module dependency tree, and it came up with something. The reason why I had it do it is because I didn't know if there was like a way to do it using built-in features or built-in library code for Python, because topological sorts are not that uncommon. But they require very different code from normal sorting, because topological sort is all about, I have a graph, I need all of the parents, all of the top level nodes. The graph can be organized, all the nodes point at other nodes in directional ways. So there is a top node that no nodes points at. I need it to go from top node to bottom node so that any node appears after or before the nodes that it points at. Or the other way around. I have these nodes, and every node points to a parent. I have to have the parentmost node appear before any of the nodes that point at it. And so that's what topological sorting is for. And there's a lot of different ways to approach that problem. And I thought, well, I don't want to have to write my own topological sort. So let's have the AI write this and see if there's a built-in topological sort that works better. There wasn't. The AI came up with an approach to topological sorting that's not terrible, but the code that it wrote for it was terrible. And so I completely rewrote the entire thing. Once I finished rewriting it, it was a lot more elegant. It was maybe about half the size. There's a bunch of things about it that were a lot better. It used a lot less memory. And so, the AI wrote terrible code. And I think that that's generally going to be true. Because AI writes average code. It doesn't write good code. It has a database of all the code anybody's ever written for stuff, and then it decides what the most probable code is for somebody to have written. So it's going to write average code, right? It's not going to write good code. And the problem with average code is average code tends to be harder to maintain than good code is. If the code is longer, there's more things that can go wrong as you're messing with it. Like all this manual index updating here that's happening in the parser, it's terribly error prone. And the AI did it, but I don't know. I don't think it made any mistakes. There's a lot of testing that went through to make sure that this parsing was working correctly. But if it had done it in a different way, the number of places where mistakes could be made was much smaller. And if somebody comes along and tries to modify this, including another AI, there's less things to have to pay attention to if you do it a slightly different way where you don't have explicit indexes. And so it's a bad way to do it. But a lot of people, upon encountering this problem, are going to use explicit indexes because it's easier to reason about from the start. Once you've finished it, the finished product is easier to reason about when you need to change it. But when you're trying to write it, it's easier to reason about how to write it from scratch using indexes. And I can understand why the AI would do that and why the average person, upon encountering this problem, would use indexes for the problem. But that's not the right approach to the problem, and it needs to be rewritten. It's not getting exponentially better. I think that there's a limiting, that's the hype, right? But I think there's, in fact, what it's happening is you're not getting exponentially better. What you're getting is like a logistics curve of it approaching some limiting point. And so I think there are ways for AI to become exponentially better, but that requires completely changing the approach. Like LLMs are like the black hole of the industry right now because they are so effective at producing language, and people are so easily fooled by facility with language. But the language is plodding and kind of pedantic, and it's not that great, and it never will be that great because of the way that they choose to do it. You need a different approach than LLM in order to make good AI. I mean, yes, that's kind of true. So Skybrowse is somebody who uses AI-generated video to make music videos. And Skybrowse does a fantastic job with it, but he uses the AI like a scalpel. He has a thing that he wants to accomplish, And he doesn't want to do all the drawing. At least I presume Skybrowse is a he. I don't know. It might be a she. And so Skybrowse pokes the AI and prods the AI and feeds the AI specific input. He uses the AI as a tool to improve his own productivity, but he has a definite vision for what he wants, and the AI would never have produced it. I've watched other people try to duplicate what some of the videos that he's done, or not duplicate them exactly, but to make other videos that are of similar themes or in a similar vein. And they all don't have a vision for what they want to accomplish. And so they feel bland and lifeless and bad because they basically let the AI do all the work for them. So you have to, but in order for him to make those videos, he has to understand what is a good video. How would you put a good video together? What kind of editing do you need to do? How do you maintain a consistent theme across the video? Like all of that stuff. And that's like that's like video creation skill. It requires both a vision and kind of a deeper sense of how to communicate with people than an AI has. So I don't think that modern AI will be able to, for creative outputs, replace what people do anytime soon. And I don't think, in a certain sense, it will ever be able to. If AI is ever created that, in fact, can make good creative works, those creative works will speak to people like an alien speaking to people. They won't speak to people like another human being speaking to people. Because the AI is going to have a completely different internal world and way of seeing the world than people do. And so the art that it makes that speaks to itself won't have the same, it will be, people will probably be able to understand the art because the AI will have been trained on the cultural output of humanity, but it will feel like it wasn't made by a human. It might feel amazing and interesting, but it isn't going to be art where somebody has one human speaking to another. So yeah, that's how I think about AI. And as I said, I don't think the current LLM approach is going to ever result in AI that makes creative works that elevate anything. It'll end up reverting to the mean. It'll be kind of average. I actually kind of worry about that because, like, the way memes go through AI, like, okay, somebody created a really brilliant meme, and then somebody's using all these AIs to process the meme, and it's going to become blander and blander and blander the more iterations of that it's going to be. And so I don't like the idea of our culture being filtered through AI extensively. And I kind of, seeing Skybrowse's work, for example, and my own experience with it, I don't think that will happen. I think people who, in fact, have really good taste and know how to speak to other people will always be able to make things that resonate better with people and will spread more widely. And so I think that this apocalyptic vision of the future where AI essentially blands our culture into paste, an alien paste, won't happen for that reason. But doesn't mean I don't think AI is capable someday of becoming creative in its own way. But if it does, it will be an alien kind of creativity, and it still won't speak to people, even if people find it novel and interesting in its way. Does that make sense? From a coding standpoint, I don't know if that matters. If there's like the massive architectural leap in how AI works that I think needs to happen in order for there to be AI that in fact is truly creative, I don't know from a coding standpoint whether it will matter to a lot of people. A lot of people only care whether code works or not. They don't really care whether it's easy to maintain or understand, or whether it's even possible for a human to maintain it or understand. And so it might not matter in that perspective. For the current level of AI that where that is LLM based. As I said, I think it's a logistics curve that's approaching a limit. But if somebody manages to come up with a breakthrough new way of doing AI and it starts creating code, it might create code that's utterly brilliant. But still that people won't be able to maintain, but that other AI will still be able to maintain well. This is code that even other AI is going to have difficulty maintaining because it's just going to get more and more complicated and plotting and too many things going on at once. It's just going to be too hard to do. So I don't think the code will look like this. In addition, code like this is in fact terribly inefficient in the long run. Like each individual piece is not exactly inefficient, but taken as a whole, the whole thing becomes inefficient because it's a lot of extra instructions that don't need to be there. It's more memory. Yeah, anyway, that's my feeling about it all. So one of the things I've noticed about most brilliant ideas, not all brilliant ideas, but most brilliant ideas, in hindsight, they seem obvious. The hard part was figuring out. And oftentimes you can tell that it took somebody who just had this brilliant insight to figure the idea out. But once they figured it out and tell everybody, it's like, of course, that's the way to do it. It's so simple. But until they figured it out, until they put the pieces together that needed to be put together, it was an incredibly complicated thing to do. I was just talking about Bitcoin with somebody today, or just watching a thing about Bitcoin and thinking about it. Like the whole proof of work idea had been floating around in the cryptographic community for quite some time. And blockchains had been around forever. Like there were several different version control systems that were all based on blockchains. The idea of using proof of work to decide what the master revision in your blockchain was is a brilliant idea. Like combining those two things together in that way, it's actually a very simple idea, but it's also a brilliant idea because it enables the whole trustless thing that Bitcoin is supposed to be. All right. Anyway, I'll go back and look at the messages because I've been ranting now for a while. Because you got me on a topic. The AI topic is one, the whole idea that we won't need to learn how to code in a year. Like, no, that's not how things are going to work. Sorry. Oh, you posted the link to it and I went to look at it and I thought that was an excellent idea. Yes. I've had an idea for something to do along those lines myself because this whole ID problem. Yeah, exactly. That I went to look at it. I'm pretty sure that's the one I looked at. I looked at the overall idea of it. I did not look at the specifics of exactly what it was you were doing. Whether from a cryptographic standpoint it made sense or not. I didn't look at the details, but the idea of what you want to do is excellent. I've thought of, as I said, of a similar idea. Like all these governments want people to prove their identity online. And oftentimes it's for age verification, but there are a number of other qualities that you should be able to prove. And it would be really nice to be able to prove that some trusted authority says this thing about you. Some trusted authority says, yes, you're 21 or whatever. But not have that trusted authority have to reveal anything about you other than, yes, you actually are 21. And do it in a way that can't be spoofed, can't be like recorded so you can provide the proof like somebody else can provide your proof later to prove that they're 21, stuff like that. And so I don't know, Mitch looked like something like that. But as I said, I've had some ideas about how to do that too. I had this vague idea that I haven't fleshed out fully that the old idea that David Chaum had for how to do digital cache could possibly be pressed into service here. But I don't know what you're doing, whether you're doing something similar or not. Are you familiar with David Chaum's old digital cache idea? Chaum, Chaum. He came up with this digital cache idea in the late 90s. So it's out of patent now, which is fantastic. Because he did the stupid thing and patented it, and so nobody used it. But there's an underlying set of cryptographic ideas behind his digital cache idea that are actually transferable to a lot of things. Like somebody made a voting system based around the same cryptographic ideas that he used for digital cache. Ah, okay. So that probably is useful to you as a thing. Yep. It's a big issue in the United States right now. Um, I personally am in the camp of people who's vastly in favor of proof of citizenship before being able to register to vote, and also being able to provide some kind of ID when you vote, and that you have to vote in person. I think there's a whole lot of things that are going on that are made possible by the fact that people get to mail in everything. I do not at all trust signature verification. I don't trust chain of custody handling for stuff when there isn't like a physical vote ballot involved. Yeah, there needs to be some really strict things around that. Like there are several different cases of USB sticks full of votes showing up after the third recount, in a couple of different cases. Like, where did that come from? Why wasn't it there at the beginning? Why is there a USB stick full of votes? But I think that electronic voting could be made secure in combination. Like if you had a registration system that had a proof of citizenship at the time you registered, you could get a cryptographic key that you could use to vote. The main difficulty with that is that somebody could like rubber hose the cryptographic key out of you and pretend to be you when they voted. But I think that particular failure scenario is reasonably easy to detect in many situations. Like if you have the proper reporting system set up, somebody who had their cryptographic key rubber hosed out of them could then go and report that fact to the appropriate authorities at some point in time. But there would have to be authorities they could trust to do that. Have you ever heard of the cypherpunk community in the United States? Although actually it's kind of a worldwide community. Are you familiar with the cypherpunks? No, that will often be true, actually, the way I have things set up. I am have been loosely involved in cypherpunk circles in the United States in the past, but not been a kind of core member. But I know a lot of people. It's more like I'm like 1 degree away from like several people who definitely are cypherpunks. uh, which is one of the reasons why I know the stuff that I know about trustless systems and cryptography, because that's something that the cypherpunks care a great deal about. I have this thing about 80 columns. This thin line right here. Oh, this editor is Sea Lion. I like Sea Lion a lot. I used to be an Emacs fanboy, but Sea Lion, the code completion, the other kinds of integrations are far beyond what anybody has done with Emacs. And so it's just, I still like Emacs. I still pull it up sometimes for stuff. Yeah, I used to have an Emacs window up on this screen, actually. Still pull it up for stuff sometimes because there's some things that are really easy to do in it still that are hard to do in Sea Lion. But Sea Lion is excellent, is extremely well done. I've not seen an IDE style editor that I like better than Sea Lion. In fact, like better than Emacs ever. Aside from this one. And even then, as I said, I still like Emacs, but it's possibly because I don't know how to do the things that I want to do in Sea Lion. Emacs has for example, there was a thing where I needed to make a complicated set of changes to a bunch of this test data that involved inserting things in various spots that were based on where the commas were. And I knew how to do that as a keyboard macro in Emacs, search for a comma 5 times, do this, do that, do the other thing. And in Emacs, you can just record a keyboard macro. And if you do it right with your keyboard macro, then you can repeat it and have the thing that you need to have happen on the next line and the next line and the next line. And I don't know how to make changes that are so cognizant of the file structure in Sea Lion. Sea Lion has regular expression search and replace, but what I needed to do was more sophisticated than you could accomplish with regular expression search and replace. At least very easily. That makes sense. I'm not sure. So when I read the Bitcoin white paper, for example, it was really clear to me once I read it, oh, that's how this works. And it was really obvious. I understood exactly how it works to the point where if I really wanted to, and I spent a whole bunch of my own time on it, I could have rewritten a Bitcoin node of my own from scratch. Um, but uh, I, I, yeah, there are other aspects of Bitcoin now where it's much more complicated. Like the Lightning Network, I have no clue how the Lightning Network works from a cryptographic perspective. I know the goals, the idea of what's supposed to happen in the Lightning Network, but I don't know how they use cryptography to make that work in a trustless system. Um, and nobody's ever explained it adequately. And I feel maybe then that very few people really understand the Lightning Network. Because to me, it seems like if there's an idea that you have that you understand fully, you should be able to explain it to somebody in a way that they can understand to some extent, even if they aren't uh, like an expert. And you should certainly be able to explain it in a way that an expert can get it with just you know, a few lines of explanation. You shouldn't have to have a whole detailed paper about what it is you're doing in order for another expert to understand what you're doing. It's true. That's one thing I feel like I am tend to be good at is I tend to be good at explaining things to people that I understand fully in a way that's really simple and easy for them to understand. Especially if I can converse with the person and get a sense of what level they're at already, I can find the right metaphors that make sense to the person I'm talking to that map cleanly onto the problem. I remember explaining TCP to somebody in terms of uh, uh, messages in bottles and oceans with smart currents and monkeys. You're about half my age. uh, I've been programming since I was a little kid. There we go. Well, it was good talking to you, and I hope that you have an excellent rest. I am based in Seattle, Washington, in the United States. You too. Let's see. Oh, what brought you to the States when you were 16? And who do you keep in touch with here? Uh, Athens? Oh, you see AT and Georgia, and you just automatically assume Atlanta. But I presume that Georgia probably also has a town named Athens. It seems like a very Georgia thing, or a very United States thing to do, to name some random town in Georgia Athens after a town in Greece, the capital of Greece. Oh, you're fairly far inland too. That's kind of interesting. Of course, Atlanta is as well. We were not too far from Atlanta. Atlanta was way off to the west of you. So you were probably like a distant suburb of Atlanta when you were in Athens. Ah, yep, okay. 1 hour to Atlanta, distant suburb. Yep. uh, you saw Savannah and you didn't even have to go to Africa. uh, that sounds like it might have been a very fun thing. It would have been fun when I was young to go to Europe. That's a big stadium. I tend to stay away from large stadiums just because. Ah, I bet 1,000,000 people do not live there because that's 1 billion people. Wow. Okay. 100,000 is 100 million people. uh, oh, okay. So 100,000. Okay. That's totally believable. China is supposed to routinely have cities with like millions of people in them. I don't know how much I believe it though, because a lot of cities in China are like ghost cities, almost empty, um, with vast vacancies. So I'm not sure that we even actually have any kind of accurate accounting of just how populous China is. Good night. I hope to see you around again. Hmm. Oh, there. Good night. It's a laudable goal. Oh, let's see here. Much better. Let's see. I wonder if I have to be explicit about the types here. I bet the type can be inferred now from the initializer. Yep. All right then. Oh, hello there, Mr. Ostap Feitel. Presumably, Mr. I have made a whole lot of updates to my program since you last showed up. I'm trying to figure out here. So this check header thing has some pretty complicated logic because it's supposed to be used in two fairly different situations. And in one situation, it's supposed to try and update the database, and in another situation, it's not. And I'm trying to figure out if it's doing the right thing in all situations here. Why does module even used? Ah, yes. Oh, because out of date error needs to know what thing is out of date officially. I see. That's why. So the problem is I'm trying. I told you about C++ modules last time, right? So this is a function that's supposed to check whether a module that's in the module database, or maybe it isn't in the module database, is out of date with respect to the module database, if it has to be recompiled. And that's true. I mean, if it's not in the database, clearly it has to be recompiled so that it ends up in the database. Otherwise, there's a number of conditions that might cause it to be out of date, and I have to check all of them. One of those conditions is it has to go through all of the things that it depends on, like modules might include other modules, right? Any of those modules that have changed will make this module out of date. So if any of those modules have to be recompiled, this module will have to be recompiled too. And so, yes, that's one condition. Another condition is modules can include header files. If any of those header files have changed, then the module's out of date. So I have this whole thing which checks. It checks all of the modules, the parent parent modules, all the way up to no modules being depended upon. It makes sure it never checks the same module twice by keeping a set, and one of the things that it checks to find out is if it's in the set or not. And it should just say false if that's the case. Actually, if it's already in the set, there's a error that I had. Because if it's already in the set and it's checked it, that means it hasn't returned true. Because if it checks something and discovers that it's out of date, it immediately returns true. It's like a short circuit. As soon as any given thing is out of date, the whole thing needs to be recompiled, and we don't need to check anymore. So as soon as one thing is true, we can just go, up, it's true, and stop. And so this whole thing is geared towards that. So if it ever gets here, that means nobody's discovered anything that's true yet. And so, it can just say false. Because it's basically encountering the same module name again. That module has already been checked, and it's already been false. So it's false again. And so here, but one of the other things that I do is I add all the modules, all the headers for all the modules to a list of all of the headers that are in the entire tree of modules. I want a list of all the headers that are depended upon by all the imported modules and my module and all that stuff. So I have to check that. And yeah. But the function for checking the headers is also called at the time a module compilation is finished, because I also want to do a quick check to make sure that nothing the module depends on has been updated while I've been compiling the module. And so one of the things to check is headers. And so that's another situation in which it needs to be checked. But the other thing that needs to happen is after a compilation is finished, it has to go through all the headers that are unique to the particular module that was just compiled and update them with any updated information. Like maybe the header changed and I need to record, oh, yes, I compiled the new version of the header. So I need to record like the new information about the header. So then when I go back and check if it's up to date or not, it won't go, well, there's a new version of the header and it needs to be recompiled, because it'll record the fact that there was a new version of the header when it compiled it. So that's one of the things this does, is check header can be called in one of two cases. And in one case, it has to update the database with new information about the header. And in the other case, it doesn't. And so I'm trying to figure out whether I got the logic right. And also, too, why some of these parameters exist, because, I wrote it yesterday. And so why am I passing in the key for the ultimate module that I care about the whole dependency tree for? Well, the reason why is because the exception that's being thrown about being out of date is yes. So now that I know that, I can do this. There we go. That's the right. There. So here's the logic for this function for checking to find out if it's out of date. Okay, I know the module I care about. And this is the database transaction, because I'm working with a database. It has simple transactions, a KV store, key value store, but it still has simple transactions. So this is the read transaction that this out of date thing is being done. And one of the things about read transactions is the state of the database from the perspective of the read is not updated by any write operations that happen during the read. That is the rule. The database maintains it. So I go through during this read transaction. I check. First of all, I get a key. Well, the database maps byte strings to byte strings. It has a key that's a byte string and it has a value that's a byte string. So I have to serialize the key to turn it into a byte string. Then I grab the value. If the value is none, well, that means the module isn't in the database. It has to be recompiled. We can just stop right there. Don't have to do anything more. Otherwise, I try to deserialize the value. And one of the things that must be true, like there is a serious program error of some kind, if this module name does not map to, if this key that's a module key, doesn't map to a module value, then something has gone seriously wrong with the program, and the cats and dogs living together, mass chaos, need to report right now before anything worse happens. Then, if the module, so this is the value that's in the database for the module. So basically all the data the database is maintaining about the module. If the module is currently being compiled and it's not being compiled by me, that's a serious weird error. And actually I'm going to call it, because that shouldn't be possible. This function should only be called in the case where the thing has been locked and it's being compiled by me. In fact, one of the things I could do, I could say There. That's the error right there. So explaining it to you enabled me to find a bug. I should look at this and go, oh, it's currently being compiled by me. And in fact, it should be impossible right here for value to be done. That should also be a problem. But we're just going to pretend it's not a problem and go, it's out of date. Because by the time it gets here, the value should have at least been updated to say, hey, we're compiling this module right now. Because that update is atomic. Like I grab the write lock. There's only one thing that can have a write lock on the database at one time. Once you grab the write lock, nobody else can modify the database until you release the write lock. At the beginning, when I say I think I want to compile, I want to do something with this module, I grab the compile lock on the module. Say I'm compiling the module right now, and then I check to find out if the module is currently up to date, and if it is, say, yep, it's okay, it's great, I succeeded. But otherwise, I might actually have to compile the module. But this check should be happened right after I've grabbed the compile lock for the module, and I should be checking to find out. So it should be impossible for value to be none here. So I should be able to say, I should be able to do that. It's a logic error in the program. Like the program is in a bad state. Cats and dogs living together is kind of state if value is none here. There should be a database entry for this module by the time it gets to this spot in the code. Then, okay, grabs the value. Again, the value that was stored for this type of key is not the right one. That's, again, a cats and dogs living together kind of situation. Now, if the value's compile PID is not equal to get PID, that's also kind of a cats and dogs living together kind of situation, but it's a little more sophisticated of a logic error. And so I kind of want to treat it like a runtime error instead of as a assertion failure. But as you can tell from the message, it's like is not currently not being compiled, like it's supposed to be being compiled by me right now. What's going wrong? Then, if not value, so I can't check this. This is not a thing I can check because right now that value will always be false. Okay. Because I'm in the middle of compiling it right now, right? So I can't know that it's that just because it's currently in the middle of being compiled that something's wrong. Okay. So now checked modules. I've checked myself. I mean, not really, but yeah. Actually, that's the thing to do. That's the right thing to do here. There we go. Okay. Basically, if there's not an output file, then in here I should say, there we go. Now this might actually fail. Fetch relevant stat. So this will never be out of date. Oh, it might. Yes. Okay, both of these indicate. All right. We've now checked all the reasons why this module that we're currently looking at might need to be recompiled. Then we can say we have checked our module. Our module is in the list of modules that we've checked the dependency out of. Okay. And we still, though, have to check the headers that this module depends on. So we create a set of headers that starts with the whatever module or whatever headers this module in particular depends on. Now we have this internal function that I won't go over just now. But then the next step in our logic is out of date equals any. So if any of these turn out to be true, and then we check the modules depended upon for every mod name in the modules that we depend on. So and this is a recursive function. This actually goes through the module that you give it, and then the things that it depends on, and the things that it depends on, and so on and so forth, until it gets to something that doesn't depend on anything. Well, you're welcome. And it was nice seeing you again. And I hope that you come back again. I should be streaming on Saturday, I think. We'll see. I hope. I haven't been the best about maintaining a consistent schedule. But if any of those is true, if any of these is out of date, then it's out of date. I mean, you don't need to do anything more. Why does this not work? Oh, I'm mirroring. Yes, I don't care. Okay, so checking this. Oh, I'm already checking this. Yep, I got this. Wrong value is our, yes. All right. Let me add, we don't need this twice. And then we check all of our children or all of our parents. Yep, 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 yep. Then we go through the headers. Okay, I think this logic is correct. I need to, yeah. Anyway, I need to disappear for just a bit, so I will be back shortly. I am now back. No, I should double check a couple of things. Hmm. It's a dangerous thing for you to be doing. Hmm. Just checking to see whether I show up properly on a particular stream. Indeed, there's a significant time delay. All right then. So now I have to add this stuff to the dependency DB. No, that's not what this should do. There we go. Yeah, we're going to have to do this. Oh, sure. We'll put this in here. There. All right, then. This compilation success one, or the compilate, not the compilation success, but the no compilation needed is interesting because I'm thinking almost that there should be a sync in here and that it shouldn't do two database things, but that's not that big of a deal. All right. I am starting the flag, but I am going to ask the AI what it thinks. Output through cat. There, I'm going to have it evaluate these changes. One 54, 193, and 194. Ah, that's a good thing for it to have caught. So 154. Let's check that one first. There, that's correct. Indentation. And that said 193, 194, but it's probably yes. Oh. No, these are wrapped with a try. These are good. I don't actually care about accounting for all of the headers. That's not important. Because the All right. So I'm not up to testing this right now, but I will get to it next stream. I think that this stream is now finished. So, yeah. Good night, all.